There is a new fad going around called Punch a Nazi. The purpose of this movement is to use physical violence to attack those who align with fringe groups on the right who advocate for white supremacy. In essence, attacking Nazis is okay due to their ideological oppression and their actions that destroy the rights of law-abiding citizens. But what constitutes being a Nazi? Sadly, it appears these days anything left of Stalin is said to obtain Nazi behaviors. What's also interesting, before we begin, is that the alt-right is presumed to obtain nothing but murdering racist. Ever since the incident in Charlottesville where a white supremacist, James Fields, killed a woman. Did you notice how they tried to categorize everyone in the alt-right as synonymous with James Fields? Why didn't they do this when a hardcore Bernie Sanders supporter shot Representative Scalise? Why didn't they do that when a Black Lives Matter supporter killed 5 cops in Dallas? Well, we know why. Because the media uses control and manipulation to brainwash regressives to follow a specific narrative. And they are very, very good at it. Now, I'm not a Nazi. I don't condone white supremacy. And I don't agree with fascism, but whether I like it or not, white supremacists are allowed to support and say what they want, just like Black Lives Matter is able to support and say what they want. The fact of the matter is that the alt-right is not composed of purely white supremacists, as Cenk Uygur and TYT fans believe. Gavin McGinnis did a great video differentiating the juxtaposition of the alt-right, the alt-light, and the hardcore right. I'll post a link in the description. Be sure to check it out. But let's get back to Nazi punching. So, this game of Nazi punching is believed to have originated here.
It's Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
So is it okay to assault someone like Richard Spencer, a self-proclaimed white supremacist? What should we take away from this behavior and this type of mob mentality? Is it right to physically attack those whom you disagree with? Do you have the right to assault someone because their ideology differs from your own? Well, here's an interesting thought for those who support Nazi punching. You are actually supporting terrorism. Terrorism is the idea that you can use fear to force others to do what you want.
I'm going to use fear to get them to do what I want. Isn't that like terrorism? No, it isn't like terrorism. It is terrorism.
Is it okay to use terrorism to achieve your political goals? I think most of us know the answer to this. Sadly, professors around the country are preaching the complete opposite. Clemson University professor Bart Nijenberg went on a Facebook rant calling Trump supporters and Republicans racist scum. He also added, quote, "I admire anyone who stands up against white supremacy, violent or nonviolent. This needs to stop by any means necessary. Hashtag punch Nazis." He has since made his page private, but sadly for him, nothing on the internet is hidden from view. Here are some screen captures of his statements. When viewing the various statements made by this professor, we can accurately predict what his teaching philosophy represents. He views everyone who disagrees with him as racist. He not only condones violence, he proactively calls for it. So the question becomes, who is the true danger in the country? Who are the real terrorists? An over-exaggerated movement of white supremacists, or the thousands of Antifa members consistently using violence to achieve their goals and who support the act of punching those they perceive as Nazis? And what about the dozens, if not hundreds, of professors indoctrinating students to project their political disagreements by using violence and hatred onto others? Johnny Williams, a professor at Trinity College who teaches classes on race, no less, made a statement of, quote, "Let them fucking die," in response to what he deems as bigots. This type of mob mentality is the definition of regressivism. These are regressives to the highest degree, using any kind of scapegoat that they can find that justifies their egregious and reprehensible behavior. Yet, actual, honest professors like Jordan B. Peterson are getting their accounts suspended because they aren't afraid to call out the hypocrisy of the regressive left. It's a sad world we live in when racist, terrorist-supporting teachers are allowed to continue spewing their hatred, and good, honest professors are being silenced. It's important to clarify this again, though I don't think regressives will actually listen to it. Being against the idea of punching a Nazi doesn't mean you are a Nazi sympathizer. Whether you agree or disagree with fascists, they have the right to express themselves. And if they aren't physically calling for violence onto others, then they have every right to preach their ideology onto others, regardless how much it upsets me or you. Using fascist tactics in the name of anti-fascism to systematically oppress those you claim are fascist only damages the already strained interpersonal relationships between one another. But there's another aspect to this that must be addressed. How do you determine who is a Nazi? Recently, Samantha Bee, who is a comedian, or rather a wannabe comedian only supported by Amy Schumer fans, mocked a 20-year-old student named Kyle Coddington by saying he had Nazi hair. It turns out that Kyle Coddington has stage 4 brain cancer. Now, Samantha Bee apologized for this atrocious act, and Kyle doesn't hold it against her, and I don't either. But can you see the problems that can happen when we judge someone based on their appearance? The truth of the matter is that the over-exaggerated rise of white supremacists you hear about so often from the corporate media was created due to the regressive and violent actions of groups like Antifa, social justice warriors, safe space advocates, and so on and so on. The rise of white supremacy is a reaction to the actions of leftist regressives. It was the regressive left that created people like Milo Yiannopoulos. It was the regressive left who gave the limited sect of white supremacists a much bigger platform. Everything you hear today and everything you see today are the consequences of advocating the regressive ideology and of political activists who can't stand listening to an opinion that differs from their own. In conclusion, the reason you see further indulgence of the regressive left is due to the teachings and reporting of left-wing corporate media shills like CNN, NBC, New York Times, etc., etc. It is due to the attempted indoctrination of young students by Marxist and violent-prone professors. It is due to groups like Antifa using violence to achieve their goals. It is due to prominent people reinforcing this mob and terrorist mentality by saying it is justified to punch those you disagree with. Donald Trump, he is just the perfect scapegoat for these people due to some of his past comments. But if we had to be honest, these regressives were always around. Now they just use Donald Trump as a scapegoat to implement their racism and hatred onto others. And it's only going to get worse. If you like what you see, please share the video and consider subscribing and being a patron. The Piper Report is an alternative news source that discusses topics you won't hear from the corporate media. And a special thanks to my patrons. And I'm done.